The Committee on Education is called to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Senator Barto,
Senator Barto is present.
Senator Gonzalez, Senator Gray,
Here.
Senator Mars,
Here.
Senator Pace,
Here.
Senator Pace Lakay,
Senator Pacheco is here.
Senator Shaw, Senator Boyer.
Emini, present. If there are no corrections, without objection, the Education Committee minutes of March 2nd, 2021 will stand approved as distributed. Okay, folks, here's the order of bills that I'm going to try and stick to as close as possible. We are doing 3 executive nominations at the very front end. Then in this order, we're going with 2241. Then the rest of the order is numerical. So 2024 is second, 2124, 2175, then 2210, and lastly, 2022. And folks, if you are here to testify, you will all be admitted to the waiting room at once when your bill is ready to be heard. And as soon as you're ready, then I will call on you and then you can unmute yourself. So first up, we have up for nomination Timothy Stratton for the State Board for Charter Schools.
Mr. Chair and members, Timothy Stratton has been nominated by the governor to the State Board for Charter Schools to serve as a public member. SBCS adopts rules and policies for charter school operations and oversees over 550 charter schools. SBCS is made up of 11 members who are appointed by the governor to staggered 4-year terms. With that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? Okay, is Timothy available? Timothy, welcome to Senate Education. The floor is yours. Timothy, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. If you would, please state your name, what you're being nominated for, and anything you'd like to share with the committee, and be available for any Q&A.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Senate Committee on Education. My name is Timothy Stratton. I am a public finance and municipal attorney practicing law in Phoenix. I am being nominated to the State Board of Charter Schools. I reside in Scottsdale. I've been an Arizona resident for over 10 and a half years. My 3 children have all gone through early elementary and middle elementary at charter schools. They currently are enrolled in Scottsdale Unified. My oldest daughter is a member of the class at Desert Mountain High School, and I have a middle school daughter and a 4th grade son. We, as a family, have been really pleased with our educational opportunities in Arizona. I work professionally with a number of school districts, both on the K through 12 and charter side, as well as municipalities through the state on public finance. One of the goals that I have to bring to the charter board, in addition to upholding the statutory mandate on oversight, both operationally and academically, is in the finance area, which is of particular interest to me. It is my goal and desire to work with policy makers in the state to make sure that we have a strong and vibrant charter school system. That includes having appropriate accountability measures in place, but also working on policy issues to improve the financing for our children's education here in Arizona. With that, I would be happy to take any questions that the senators may have.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Acting Vice Chair, will you please move the nomination?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Senate Education Committee recommend to the full Senate the confirmation of Timothy Stratton to the State Board for Charter Schools.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
Senator Barto,
And members, if you would remember to state your
Senator
name and
Barto votes aye on the nomination.
Senator Gonzalez, Senator Gray,
Senator Gray votes aye on the nomination of Tim Stratton.
Senator Mars,
Aye.
Senator Pace,
Aye.
Senator Pace Lakay,
I, Senator Peschelkai, vote aye on the nomination of Mr. Timothy Stratton to Charter School Board.
Senator Shaw, Senator Boyer.
I vote aye on the nomination for Timothy Stratton to the State Board for Charter Schools.
7 ayes, 0 nay, and 1 not voting.
Members, by a vote of 7 ayes, 0 nay, you have returned Timothy Stratton to the State Board for Charter Schools to the full Senate for consideration. Thank you, Mr. Stratton.
Great, thank you. Thank you all, senators. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next up, we do have Karen Taylor Robeson.
Mr. Chair and members, Karen Taylor Robeson has been nominated by the governor to the Arizona Board of Regents for reappointment as a public member. The Arizona Board of Regents is the governing board of Arizona's public universities. A board is made of 10 appointed members. The term of each member is 8 years. With that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? Okay, thank you. I hear she's in the room. Is that correct? Karen, if you would, start your video and unmute yourself so you can introduce yourself to the committee. There we go. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. If you would, state your name, what you are hoping to be nominated to, and anything about yourself, and be open for any Q&A.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Karen Taylor Robeson. I am currently serving as a member of the Arizona Board of Regents. Governor Ducey nominated me for reappointment last year. It has been an honor of mine to serve on the Arizona Board of Regents. As you all know, we have a very large and growing higher education system in Arizona. And we have 8 appointed members who have a lot on their plate. So I have been very fortunate to focus on a couple particular areas. Number one is real estate. Given my background in the real estate development business, we have quite a large portfolio at the Arizona Board of Regents. So that has been something that has taken my time. More recently, I've been very active and involved in the implementation, the promulgation of a policy related to general education. And I've also been very active and involved in ensuring that our universities protect the free speech rights of our students. That is kind of the tip of the iceberg of things that we deal with. I have served for 3 years. I served the final 3 years of the previous A Board chairman's term. And I can tell you 3 years is not long enough to get things done. There is much more to be done and much more on my plate to try and accomplish. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Acting Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Senate Education Committee recommend to the full Senate the confirmation of Karen Taylor Robeson to the Arizona Board of Regents.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
Senator Barto,
Senator Barto votes aye on the nomination of Karen Taylor Robeson to the Arizona Board of Regents.
Senator Barto votes aye on the nomination of Karen Taylor Robeson to the Arizona Board of Regents.
Senator Gonzalez. No. Senator Gray,
Senator Gray happily votes aye for the appointment of Karen Taylor Robeson to the Board of Regents.
Senator Gray happily votes aye on the nomination of Karen Taylor Robeson to the Arizona Board of Regents.
Senator Mars,
Aye.
Senator Pace,
Aye.
Senator Pace Lakay,
I, Senator Peschelkai, vote aye on the nomination of Karen Taylor Robeson.
Senator Peschlakai votes aye on the nomination for Karen Taylor Robeson to the Arizona Board of Regents.
Senator Shaw, Senator Boyer,
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 not voting.
Members, by a vote of 6 aye, 1 nay, and 0 not voting, you have returned Karen
1
Taylor,
not voting.
and 1 not voting, sorry, to the Arizona Board, Karen Taylor Robeson to the Arizona Board of Regents to the full Senate for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Douglas Ball.
Mr. Chair and members, Douglas Ball has been nominated by the governor to the State Board for Private Post-Secondary Education to serve as a commerce or industry representative. The State Board for Private Post-Secondary Education licenses and regulates private post-secondary educational institutions offering vocational and degree programs. The board is made up of 7 appointed members who are appointed for 4-year terms. With that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? Okay, thank you. Is Douglas in the room?
Here.
There we go. Douglas, if you would, state for your name, the record, where you're hoping to be nominated to, anything you'd like to share about yourself, and open yourself up for any questions and answers.
Hey, my name is Douglas Ball, and I'm a 1973 graduate of Arizona State University with a bachelor's degree in accounting. In 1976, I became a CPA, and I've been a CPA now for 40-some years. Yeah. Okay, my name is Doug Ball, and I'm a 1973 graduate of ASU.
Mr. Ball, can you hear me?
Yeah,
If you would, please turn
Yes.
off your browser that has the azledge.gov that's streaming, because we're getting some feedback. And just look into the Zoom, or just keep that browser open.
okay. Are we okay now?
Yeah, I believe so. If you would start talking, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, yes.
Mr. Ball, we're still getting feedback, and then there's a delay. If you would just pay attention to your Zoom browser and delete any other browsers that you might have open.
Okay, hang on. Okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you and sound so far so good. Please proceed.
Okay. My name is Doug Ball, and I'm a 1973 graduate of ASU with a degree in accounting. Okay. Hang on just for a second. Hey, Craig, can I see you for a minute?
Or should we?
I'll be right with you here. I need to turn off all the browsers except for this one. We're getting
Mis-
feedback.
Mr. Ball, we're going to move to our first bill, and that'll give you an opportunity to figure out your technical issues, and then we'll come back to you right after we pass the first bill. Okay, so let's move to 2241.
Mr. Chair and members, House Bill 2241 directs the State Board of Education to include a requirement that students be taught about the Holocaust and other genocides at least twice between grades 7 and 12, an adopted course of study and competency requirements. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Members, any questions? Okay, thank you. The sponsor's here. Before she comes up, though, I just wanted to make an announcement about this bill and a heavy interest in Armenian genocide education as well. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on one of my bills that I'm hoping to make it here out of the Senate. I'm going to amend language onto one of my bills, that's Senate Bill 1453, that will include Armenian genocide education that's similar to what we're doing here. I am working with the sponsor on that. And so that won't be included on today's bill, but I'm committed to fighting for that and getting that on one of my bills as soon as it gets over to the House. And I'd like to amend that in House education moving forward. And so with that, the sponsor's here. Welcome to Senate Education.
Sorry. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Bartow. Senator Bartow.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yep, thank you. To that point, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you wanting to address that, and I received an email about the possibility that there would be an amendment offered. I was wondering, though, I mean, there are other populations that have citizens of other descents, such as the Assyrians, that are very concerned about losing their history about Assyrian genocide. Would you be open to a discussion about including them as well?
Senator Bartow, of course.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get started.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to bring this bill to you once again. We were working on this for the last 2 years, and yes, last year because of COVID, obviously it did not make it all the way through. It's in honor of the Holocaust survivors who were here. I think some of you are new to the committee. We brought in Holocaust survivors to speak on the bill last year. Unfortunately, one of the survivors that was involved passed away during this time. I would have loved for him to be a part of this, but this is in honor of them and making sure that we are teaching the next generation about the Holocaust so that it never happens again. I do want to mention, based on what you just discussed, the reason we added other genocides to the bill was so that we could include other genocides. And we didn't specify which ones or make a list, but we put other genocides so that they could be taught as well. So the way we had done it on the House side was to make sure that others were not excluded. That's the reason we added that to Holocaust education. And with that, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the sponsor? Okay, seeing none, we do have several folks wishing to speak, and I'm going to go in this order. Tro Panosian, is Tro in the room?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Boyer. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Wonderful. I'd like to thank you, Chairman Boyer, and the Education Committee for the opportunity to speak, and to Representative Alma Hernandez for authoring this bill. My name is Tro Panosian, and I am a proud 27-year-old resident of Scottsdale, Arizona. I am a descendant of Armenian genocide survivors. 106 years ago, it was 1.5 million Armenians and close to 1 million Greeks and Assyrians that were annihilated at the hands of the Ottoman Turks. My great-grandparents were the lucky ones in their family to survive, through miracles, baking in the hot, sweltering sun of the Syrian desert, hiding from Turkish soldiers, picking at the grain in horse feces to survive, to have something for nourishment and food. They walked and walked, tired and hungry, inches away from death, so that I may stand before you here today and give testimony. Most every Arizonan of Armenian descent has a similar story to mine. At this point, 106 years later, it's part of the cultural fabric of the greater Phoenix and Arizona community. Like the great mythical Phoenix, the city which we are named after, the bird which we are named after, we are survivors. We rise from the ashes and breathe anew. I'd like to make 3 points, Chairman Boyer. The Armenian genocide is the first modern genocide. This is universally recognized. As documented by former U.S. Ambassador to the UN Samantha Power, German soldiers stationed in Turkey during World War I intricately studied the works of the Ottoman soldiers and applied this to World War II and the Holocaust. The Armenian community continues to face persecution in the face of genocide denial at the hands of the Ottoman government. It was 6 days before his invasion of Poland that Adolf Hitler stated, "Who now, after all, remembers the annihilation of the Armenians?" The denial has only perpetuated since. The Armenian genocide is the most preeminent example, along with the Holocaust, in demonstrating all 8 stages of the science of genocide, as per academic Dr. Gregory Stanton. The last stage of genocide, of course, is its denial. And we all know today, with the multi-billion-dollar propaganda campaign from the Turkish government, that ambiguity perpetuates denial. Our community continues to face threats in all of this. As you may recall, there was an arson of our community center in San Francisco last year. It was a few years ago that our own St. Apgar Armenian Apostolic community in Scottsdale, Arizona, faced cultural property destruction by overnight vandals. It is what it is that our verbiage, Armenian genocide, wasn't included to this point. I should note that the Armenian community is one of the biggest stakeholders in this bill, and we feel that we've been left out. We've spent several weeks to try to work with Representative Hernandez, and we applaud her for being a champion of this wonderful cause. But we would like to underscore that we feel that as descendants of survivors, we have a place at the meeting table, and that our language, including the words Armenian genocide, should be explicitly included in the future education of our pupils of the great Grand Canyon State. I will leave you with this. Ambiguity perpetuates denial, and it's so much more applicable to the case of the Armenian genocide and Holocaust than it would be for other mass atrocities. As such, I hereby request a floor amendment to House Bill 2241 to explicitly include the words Armenian genocide. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, members. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Tro. Next up, wishing to speak, Jennifer Zach. And on deck is the Reverend Zacharias Sargis Sarabekian.
Hi.
Can you
hear me?
Jennifer, yes.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you to Chairman Boyer and to the Education Committee for the opportunity to speak. And special thanks to Representative Hernandez as well for sponsoring this bill today. My name is Jennifer Zach, and I come before you today as a representative from the Jewish community. I'm a Jewish educator in the state of Arizona, and I also work in the area of high-risk financial crimes. I work in areas such as terrorism and human trafficking, and I will speak to the application of that work to what I'm here to talk about today. I first began a German-Jewish partnership with the Armenian community here in Arizona when I was director of the Jewish Law Students Education Program at Arizona State University. We partnered together for a conference on the topic of the Armenian genocide. And there we faced enormous threats to our safety and well-being, to the point where the FBI was called in and had undercover agents at our conference. We had bomb-sniffing dogs and police presence to guard the safety of the more than 1,000 people who came to our conference at ASU. It was one of the largest conferences that the law school has ever put on. We attracted speakers who were Pulitzer Prize awardees and who continue to educate on this subject today. We received international attention from the International Association of Genocide Scholars for our partnership. At the conference, there was a couple with a baby, and I wondered if I should tell them to leave out of concern for their safety. I wish I were here today talking to you about a topic that was embedded in our past. And I wish I were here talking to you about threats that are not real. There is a reason why the Jewish community stands with the Armenians on this subject and why this cause is so linked. As Tro spoke about, Jewish survivors and scholars evoked the Armenian genocide to talk about how the Holocaust could happen. these causes are deeply intertwined with each other. Nowadays, the attacks evoked by Tro on St. Gregory's Church in San Francisco, the vandalism of our own St. Apgar's community here in Scottsdale, should be understood as attacks on Christianity itself. As a Jewish person, I stand united with Christians and all people supportive of this religious freedom. We see ISIS attacking Christians and destroying churches now in the Middle East, and this includes Armenian targets. We need to stand together against these kinds of attacks on religious freedom. Teaching about the Armenian genocide works in tandem with teaching about the Holocaust. In my work now, I deal with very real threats to the Jewish communities in Arizona from groups like Atomwaffen, Boogaloo, and other white supremacists and neo-Nazi groups active here in the state of Arizona. We as communities continue to face these existential threats. In this moment, I ask that the Armenian genocide be explicitly referred to in our Holocaust education bill. Referring to this genocide as separate, but somehow equal in importance to education about the Holocaust is not enough. I ask that these bills, that this language be intertwined for this reason, that to teach about the Holocaust is to teach about the Armenian genocide. And I come to you as a proud Arizona resident and thankful for your time and attention today. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. We have passed the deadline for any amendments for today, but that's why it's important that I get an amendment in House Education on one of my bills on 1453. And so I am committed wholeheartedly to fighting for exactly what you just spelled out. And so I am going to include that in my bill but unfortunately for today, we did pass today's deadline. So I just wanted to make sure that it's more of a technical issue for today, but we are committed to moving forward with including Armenian genocide education. So just so everyone is aware of that. Next up, wishing to speak, we have Reverend Zacharias Sargis Sarabekian.
Can you hear me?
We can. Welcome to Senate Education.
Thank you, Chairman Boyer and the Education Committee for the opportunity to speak. And thank you, Representative Hernandez, for sponsoring this bill. My name is Reverend Father Zachariah, or Sargis Sarabekian. I'm the priest at the St. Apgar Armenian Apostolic Church of Arizona, which has over 1,000 families, exactly 1,080. Majority of these families are grandchildren of survivors of genocide. They find refugee in this great country to be safe. They came to be safe and also to be able to tell their story. Genocide education never stops in our families. We teach our kids, grandkids, grandchildren. We share personal stories and historical events. But it is not only the history of one nation, Armenians. It is a dark page of entire human race. Therefore, I request a floor amendment to HB 2241 to specifically include the words Armenian genocide. It is important for school students to learn about Armenian genocide in specific and genocide in general. As we know, 20th century was the century of genocides. Armenian, Greek, Assyrian genocide are the first one. And because civilized societies and governments failed to stop it, and later on failed to educate and prevent it from ever happening again, it repeated it in the form of Holocaust and many, many more, even today. Genocide is not simply a bad horrible event that happened in the past, but one that haunts and troubles contemporary society. Therefore, it's important to teach about genocides. Not teaching or not paying enough attention is denying it. Students must learn about the preconditions that are common to various genocides and to study how genocide occurs and understand that genocide can be prevented. Genocides have occurred and are happening throughout the world, and students should learn about them. Learning about genocide is critical to having a well-informed citizen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next up, wishing to speak, Anahit Kirakosian.
Hello. Firstly, I'd like to thank you, Chairman Boyer, and the Education Committee for this opportunity to speak, and Representative Hernandez for sponsoring this bill. My name is Anahit Kirakosian, and I am a proud resident of Queen Creek, Arizona. My great-grandmother survived the horrific events of the Armenian genocide. She watched her family slaughtered as she hid inside a bush. She became the sole survivor of her family. Learning history in school, it always hurt that we were never taught about the Armenian genocide. I knew the stories and was well aware of how even Hitler was inspired by it to commit atrocities. Teaching about it will not only help the world stand together and say never again to all genocides, but it would make the Armenian community feel heard. Thank you for your time, and I hereby request a floor amendment to HB 2241 to explicitly include the words Armenian genocide. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Great, thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, thank you. Next up, wishing to speak, Ann Lombardi. Is Ann in the room? Okay, we don't see Ann. Rosa Gavin?
Good afternoon. I would like to thank Chairman Boyer and Education Committee for the opportunity to speak and Representative Hernandez for sponsoring this bill. My name is Rosa Khachaturian, and I'm a resident of Glendale, Arizona, and I'm a descendant of Armenian genocide survivors. My paternal great-grandfather, Grigor Khachaturian, lived in Samsun, present-day Turkey. He was 23 at the time of genocide. He was actively involved in the Armenian National Liberation Movement. The movement developed during the years of the First World War, at the time when Armenians living in the Ottoman Empire were systematically exterminated. As a result of genocide, my great-grandfather fled Turkey together with his wife, 2 brothers, and 1 sister. One of his sisters was burned alive while being pregnant, and his parents were also killed. My maternal great-grandfather, Kazaran Torkom, was 4 years old, and he was the only survivor of his family. He spent all his life looking for his brother, but could never find him again. The inclusions of the words Armenian genocide matters to me as a descendant of the survivors. It's important for students to know about the atrocities that took place many years ago. People mustn't forget for us not to have another person in history planning on ethnic cleansing and saying, and who remembers about the annihilation of Armenians today? The answer is, we do. I hereby request the full amendment of HB 2241 to explicitly include the words Armenian genocide. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Great, thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, thank you. Next up, wishing to speak, Harry Panosian.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Boyer and Representative Hernandez for sponsoring this bill. I come to you as a descendant of genocide survivors. I feel like since I was 10 years old, I've been fighting this uphill battle for the recognition of the Armenian genocide, first and foremost, and to bring some peace to my ancestors that were perished in this genocide. Now, in 1990, Senator Bob Dole introduced the bill, Senate Joint Resolution 212, to commemorate the Armenian genocide, and it passed committee after a rigorous debate, and one of the supporters of the bill in committee hearings was the Honorable Senator from Delaware, Joseph Biden, who now resides on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in DC. So the resolution ultimately was brought to the floor of the Senate, and by a filibuster by then Democrat leader Robert Byrd of Virginia, the bill was defeated. 40 years fast forward to 2019, the same exact resolution was passed, as you may recall, about a year ago or so, unanimously, and it was affirmed by the Senate. Why am I saying this? Because this has been a back and forth for years, and as a descendant of genocide survivors, I implore you and I ask you if you can amend the bill on a floor amendment, if such a thing is permissible under the Senate rules, to include the term Armenian genocide after the Holocaust in the language of the bill. There's imperative reasons for children to learn about this heinous crime because it was the first of the 20th century. And unless we own up to our past, these things will be repeated over and over again. I thank you for your time, and I'm prepared to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, next up, wishing to speak, Mary Panosian. Do we have Mary?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi there, welcome.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon. I would like to thank Chairman Boyer and the Education Committee for the opportunity to speak, and Representative Hernandez for sponsoring this bill. My name is Mary Panosian and I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. I am a descendant of Armenian genocide survivors. My great-grandfather was mayor of the town of Zara. He was hung for being Armenian. My great-aunt's children were slaughtered and killed by Turkish soldiers in front of her eyes on her lap. My grandmother witnessed her own mother's death. She wandered through the Syrian deserts as a 7-year-old child before she was saved by an orphanage. We were all uprooted from our homes, and our ancestors eventually found safety in this beautiful country. The Armenian genocide inspired Raphael Lemkin to create the word genocide in 1944. He was well documented as a blueprint for the Holocaust. And despite universal recognition, it is still denied today by the Turkish government. For these reasons, we must teach our children. We must stand together and say never again. I hereby request a floor amendment to HB 2241 to explicitly include the words Armenian genocide. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, next up, wishing to speak, Nia Yulanaki.
Hi, thank you. If you can hear me okay, I'll go ahead and get started.
Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you. I would like to thank you, Chairman Boyer and the Education Committee, for providing the opportunity for us to speak today. Thank you to Senator Hernandez for sponsoring this important bill. My name is legally Navard Sarkisian Yulanhake, and I'm a proud resident of Phoenix, Arizona. I am a descendant of an Armenian genocide survivor. My maternal grandparents and their families were displaced from Gilikia during the Armenian genocide. My grandmother was one of 4 children in her family and was 5 years old at that time. During the march, my grandmother felt ill and asked for water. They didn't have access to water as they were marching through the desert during what was considered the death march. When her mother tried to find water for her, she was hit so hard and fell unconscious. There was no help given to her. Instead, she was wrapped in a white cloth and thrown into the river. This is all my grandmother would ever talk about. This is all she repeated. If only I could remember my mother's voice. I wish I had just one picture of her. Before she died, when she was nearly 100, she said, "I'm going to finally see my mother and hear her." If time was not a concern today, I'd want to direct a question to each of you and ask, why do we teach history to children in schools in the first place? But since I don't have that time, I'll answer. And my feelings are that one of the main reasons we teach history is to learn from the mistakes of the past. Everyone would agree that genocide is a crime. Genocide itself is a word that was coined because of what happened to the Armenian people in the beginning of the 20th century. To this day, we see genocide occurring around the world. Why? Perhaps because children are not being taught about the crucial historical events. How could we talk about the Holocaust, which occurred after the Armenian genocide, and not talk about the event that Hitler referred to when sending his troops into Poland? As mentioned here before, today, who today remembers the annihilation of the Armenians? The generations are changing and time is going quickly. It is of utmost importance to teach the younger generations about not just the Holocaust, but also the Armenian genocide. I ask you today for a floor amendment of HB 2241 to specifically include the Armenian genocide. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. And last up, wishing to speak, Pierre Yonan. Welcome to the Senate Education Committee.
Hello, I'd like to thank the Senate Education Committee and Senator Boyer. I'd like to thank you. I'd also like to thank Representative Bardo for bringing up the Syrian contribution to this. I am Pierre Yonan. I'm an Assyrian American. I'm a resident here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I've been chosen to speak here because I am one of the few Assyrians that really is passionate about this issue and would love to see this genocide mentioned. My family was uprooted from their homes during this genocide in a small village in southern Anatolia known as Huma in my language. Huma was actually a pretty prosperous village in its time until Ottoman soldiers came, looted, raped, and burned everything in the village. My great-great-grandfather was killed, and my great-grandfather, whom I barely knew, was only 10 years old when he was forced to flee along with his uncle and his cousins all the way to Iran, far away from their home, where their livelihood was now destroyed and their memories, where they could no longer have any more memories. I've come to discuss the importance of adding such a thing as the Armenian genocide to this bill. The Armenian genocide is one of the most tragic events of the 20th century, and it is almost universally not discussed in education across the world. In fact, I think that it would be a great step in the right direction if we were able to start discussing it here in Arizona. It would be a very progressive step to discuss it. And I would request a floor amendment to House Bill 2241 for discussion of the Armenian genocide. Thank you for your time. Sorry.
Thank you. Pierre, I'm curious, in 10th grade when you made it to World War II, or if you did, during World War I, did the Syrian genocide and the Armenian genocide ever come up in your schooling?
It did not. Unfortunately, it did not. I was forced to raise my hand and basically discuss it with my professor, who was very, very, very curious about it. And I was able to discuss it, but only on my own accord because I was given the opportunity, but not because it was mandatory.
Yeah, I see. Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, thank you, folks. We do not have anybody else wishing to speak, and we don't have any amendments on the bill. Senator Gonzalez, would you like to play my acting vice chair and move the bill?
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move that Senate Bill 22...
House Bill.
Oh, House Bill.
Yeah.
House Bill 2241 receive a due pass recommendation.
Okay, thank you. There are no amendments. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Senator Barto,
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Would you like to explain your vote?
Yes, please.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I appreciate the sponsor bringing this bill again. I so appreciate everyone's testimony today. This is an incredibly personal issue to so many Americans who have a history, personal history with this horrific past that cannot be forgotten. I very much appreciate the encouragement to include other genocides. I think the Armenian and Assyrian genocides, I mean, hundreds of thousands were wiped out, and they need to be remembered. And many tens of thousands of both of those communities live here in the state of Arizona, and their children should have those remembered in the state of Arizona. And I look forward to seeing amendments to that effect. With that, Nancy Bartow votes aye on House Bill 2241.
Senator Bartow votes aye on House Bill 2241.
Senator Gonzalez?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explain my vote.
Please proceed.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone that spoke on behalf of this bill, and my seatmate, Representative Alma Hernandez, for bringing this back to us. I think it's important that as an educator, I think some of you that might have been here last year when we heard the bill, I spoke about this, and as an educator, it's important for me that all history, world history, U.S. history, genocide history, of all include all of the genocides that have happened in the world and here in the United States specifically is what I would like to also see. I too would then be God, I forgot the word. A descendant from genocide of the Americas, of the United States, because we, indigenous peoples of the Americas, were also part of genocides when settlers and conquerors came from the old world to the new world because they were lost, you know. And so a lot of when they came, a lot of they encounter vast number of indigenous people throughout the Americas that have vast just communities and development that really are part of our history. And we need to be able, I think it's paramount that our schools and that our state board and that all of us really take part in asking our educators, our school boards, our districts to really be teaching the true history of our communities, of the U.S. and of the world. Because as one of our speakers said today, we're bound to repeat history if we do not teach the atrocities that happen in all of these genocides. I hope that all of you that came here to support this bill and also who want an amendment to 2241 that I'm happy to hear that Senator Boyer will run a bill in the House to be able to do that, to include the Armenian genocide and all of the genocides. And I too asked Senator Boyer to include the indigenous genocides that happened in the U.S. by settlers and conquerors like Columbus and many others that came to the Americas, because it's important to learn and to remember so that these atrocities do not happen again. And also what I think it's important is that we help school districts and school boards stop adopting texts and resources that do not tell the true history of the world and the U.S. So I hope that all of you help in this regard. And to Chairman Boyer, please add, all of the genocides to the bill that you're going to do in the House. I respectfully ask of you that, and I vote yes. I'm happy to vote yes on House Bill 2241.
Senator Gray.
Senator Gray votes aye on House Bill 2241.
Senator Gray votes aye on House Bill 2241.
Senator Mars.
Mr. Chair, may I explain my vote?
Please proceed.
This will be very quick. I'm just very grateful to see this bill moving forward. With that, I vote aye. Thank you.
Senator Pierce. Senator Pierce Lakay.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to explain my vote.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to Representative Hernandez for bringing this bill forward again. I know she's worked on this for years. And then also to our presenters, and then also to our members and to you, Mr. Chairman. I do agree with Senator Gonzalez talking about history. I was a history major at Northern Arizona University and have my degree in educational psychology as a master. And I think one thing that is so important about history is to remember that it was one day the future for some. And we live every day making history. And these atrocities and these injustices unfold each and every day and manifest itself in different ways. And as a Native American woman with a degree in history, I know that our history here in the United States is whitewashed. And you see me on a screen with the Grand Canyon behind me. Each of these areas in our sacred homelands has foreign names, and our indigenous people are from here. And like you heard Senator Gonzalez talk about the genocide of Native Americans, it manifests itself today in different ways. And so we always need to be kind, respectful, and think about justice as a responsibility of each and every one of us. And the irony that I see as you all are here in the United States, living your lives with this atrocity in your history, is that the first colonizers of the Americas came here in refuge too. And then as history unfolded itself, they did what they did to us, the Native American. And so that's something that I would like to leave with you in your minds and ask you to also consider the Native American with kindness and support and respect as you live your life in this country, which we call Shema, which is our Mother Earth. And I hope the young people in this discussion, like Pierre, and I don't remember how to say the other names, but you know, this is this is history today, and what you're doing is right. And may we all come to respect the people of humanity, humankind. And sometimes, you know, we all have to fight for what is right. And sometimes it takes allies. So I want to say that, and I hope you happiness in the future and blessings, and may we never ever come into atrocities like this again. And I want to thank you all for the work that you do. It is truly heartbreaking, but always remember, it starts in very innocent ways, and I expect you to be a watchdog for all justice and social equality as we move forward. With that, I vote aye, Mr. Chairman.
Senator,
On House Bill 2241.
thank you. Senator Peschlakai votes aye on House Bill 2241.
Senator Shaw,
Aye.
Senator Boyer,
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nay, and 1 not voting.
Members, by your vote of 7 ayes, 0 nay, 1 not voting, you have given House Bill 2241 a due pass recommendation. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call an audible. Representative Dunn is here, and so we're going to move to, oh, sorry. Yeah, we're going to move to House Bill 2175.
Mr. Chair and members, House Bill 2175 directs school districts and charter schools to require verifiable documentation of residency according to policies established by SBE rather than ADE guidelines for enrolling pupils. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, members. Any questions? Great, the sponsor's here. Welcome to Senate Education.
Thank you, Chairman Boyer. Thank you, members, for hearing the bill, and thank you for calling the audible. I was over here in the Senate, so I thought I'd sit around, so appreciate that. So yes, this is pretty much a straightforward, simple bill, moves to the State Board of Education as opposed to the Arizona Department of Education. So history is that there's the documents for enrolling your students is different than the documents required for if you pick your student up from a emergency or lockdown situation. They're not conforming, and so we have some schools that are having problems with making sure they comply with these documents. And it's not particularly this administration, it's been an ongoing problem for several administrations as far as getting conforming documents. And they thought if they did it, you know, they kind of change it right this last year, kind of changed it right before the enrollment period to try to smooth out some of the concerns. So it's been an ongoing problem. So we thought if we had it in a open and transparent forum where you can get buy-in and public testimony, then we could actually make sure we have conforming documents so that the schools just want to make sure they're enrolling the right people. Because about 10 years ago, Aho had about a $1.2 million payback because they weren't doing their documents right. And so this amount allows to make sure that they can do this because they want everybody to be enrolled in class if they can, especially now trying to pick the students up whenever they have a lockdown and on the right documents that match to pick them up. So that's the background I have, and I'd be asked to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative Dunn. I know you've been working on this for a few years. Members, any questions for the sponsor? Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Representative Dunn. I didn't quite understand. Can you restate why the need for this bill? Just restate it again. Okay. What I understood is that some papers were not matching up, and the papers are different from registration to registering a child, and then I didn't understand the latter.
Representative Dunn.
Chairman Boyer, Senator Gonzalez. Yeah, I might have talked too fast. So this bill particularly talks to the actual registration of the documents. So what, putting it to the State Board of Education so that they can actually determine what documents. There's a list of documents that you're required when you enroll your student. And so those documents currently with the Department of Education are different. It's under their control, but they have different guidelines for when you pick your student up. If your student's at a school and you have a lockdown or a fire, right now when you go to take your documents to pick up your student, that list is different than the documents you're required to enroll them. So if you're not required to show an ID as a parent or the guardian to enroll your student, and then the bill doesn't address making sure that they do conform, but our plan in talking to the folks at the school districts is when you put this into the public forum at the State Board of Education, then those discussions we'll be having, making sure that they do have, talking about the conforming and what documents are required, because there's a list of 10 different things that you can do to register your student in the school.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Dunn. So I think the part that I didn't quite understand is the part of picking up a child when there is a lockdown. I don't know, maybe somebody else, whether it's staff or I don't know if you have any speakers, Mr. Chair, but I don't understand what's the requirement for these documents when you pick up a child after a lockdown. Can somebody explain that?
Senator Gonzalez, we don't have any speakers on the bill. We just have the sponsor here, so hopefully he can answer that, or
Madam
maybe
Chair,
staff can.
Senator Gonzalez, like I said, this bill, that is the concern with the school districts is they're registering their student with a certain document. So you can have, you say you're living with a guardian, and you don't have proof of guardianship, and you don't have the proof of so you have a guardian who doesn't have legal guardianship. You filled out the paperwork that says my student is living with this guardian. So and now you've enrolled them students. Then a separate set of documents, when you come to pick up your students, you have to prove who you're the parent. And those documents requirements are separate. It does not cover it under this bill. So what they're wanting to say, they think to flesh it out, having it open forum in the State Board of Education as opposed to the Department of Education would allow the open, transparent discussions to make sure that they can figure out which exact documents and what criteria, so the schools are, all they want to do is honor them and be not set up for an audit. So that's what their concern is not being set up for an audit. And this applies to any school district in the state as far as jurisdiction of whether or not you're trying to move from once, after open enrollment. So it's pretty simple. It's just about open and transparency, and whether or not we should allow them to do it. But it is a separate set of documents. But this bill does not refer to those documents. We're just trying to have an open, transparent discussion.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, will the Vice Chair please move the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking for there's no amendments, right? So, Mr. Chair, I move House Bill 2175. Is that correct? With a do pass recommendation.
Thank you. There are no amendments. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the Secretary please call the roll?
Senator Barto,
Senator Barto votes aye on House Bill 2175.
Senator Barto votes aye on House Bill 2175.
Senator Gonzalez,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to explain my vote.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I think I understand what you're trying to do, but I'm not understanding why it's needed. And so at this time, I think I'll do a little bit more research and talk to to Representative Dunn, the sponsor, and at this time, and hopefully my vote will change on the floor, but for now, it's a no.
Senator Gray,
Senator Gray votes aye on House Bill 2175.
Senator Gray votes aye on House Bill 2175.
Senator Mars,
No.
Senator Pace, Senator Pace-Lakay,
I, Senator Pesh-Lakay, vote no on House Bill 2175.
Senator Pesh-Lakay votes no on House Bill 2175.
Senator Shaw,
Aye.
Senator Boyer.
Aye.
4 ayes, 3 nays, and 1 not voting.
Members, by your vote of 4 aye, 3 nay, 1 not voting, you have given House Bill 2175 a do pass recommendation.
Thank you, members, and I'll get back to you, Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you.
Yes, members, I understand that we've fixed our technical issues with Mr. Ball. If we can go back to our last nomination. Mr. Ball, why don't you go ahead and try it again. Give us your name, where you're trying to be nominated to, and then a little bit about yourself, and be open for Q&A.
Okay, if this doesn't work, I'll come down there next week. Anyway, my name's Doug Ball. I'm a CPA here in Arizona and have been for the last 45 years or so. I'm a graduate of ASU in 1973, became a CPA in 1976. And for the last 15 years or so, my wife and I have owned our own CPA firm here in Phoenix. And I specialize in the audit of post-secondary schools, like cosmetology schools and other trade schools. So I've been doing that for almost 20 years. And so I think I could bring some kind of financial expertise to the committee or to the commission that may help them make decisions. And so, does anybody have any questions?
Members, are there any questions?
Yes,
Senator Gonzalez?
And I don't know if it might be a staff question, but thank you, Mr. Ball, for your interest in being on the board for the charter schools. But I'm wondering if, again, what schools you currently work on and do audits on, and would this present some kind of conflict? Maybe the question is for the staff, maybe. But you can answer. Go ahead.
Mr. Ball.
It's the Post-Secondary Education Commission that I'm applying for, not the charter school.
Oh, okay. I got the wrong.
I can give you a list of my clients here in town. For example, Studio Academy of Beauty, Turning Point Beauty College, American Interior Design School, Olympus, which is a big chain of cosmetology schools. I also do the audit for Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. And my plan would be if any of those clients came up before the board, I would abstain from voting.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. We're going to have staff go ahead and just provide further clarification on what board you're exactly up for.
Mr. Vice Chair, Senator Gonzalez, the statutory requirements for the Commerce or Industry Representative position, to be eligible for this position, the appointee must be a citizen of Arizona and hold an executive or managerial position in a private educational institution offering private vocational programs in Arizona.
We couldn't hear anything she said.
Fantastic.
Mr. Vice Chair, Senator Gonzalez, the statutory requirements for the Commerce or Industry Representative position is the appointee must be a citizen of Arizona and hold an executive or managerial position in a private educational institution offering private vocational programs in Arizona.
Thank you.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you. I don't think it quite addressed my concern with the conflict. I think that Mr. Ball answered a little bit better that he would abstain from voting, and if any of his clients came up before the board. But just for the staff and the sponsor, I forget who. Oh, this is just an appointment. I might have a concern on supporting. Unless I get answers to my question before the Senate votes for full confirmation or, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gonzalez. I think that, if I may, since this is a industry position on that commission, I view it pretty similarly to other boards and commissions that we have, for example, like liquor licenses and control, which often has a retail member who sells items, or other member, maybe a bar owner or the distributor family or wholesaler. So I understand, I think, what you're saying, Senator, and I think that those same rules that would apply to those members would obviously apply here in this situation. But thank you for the question. Members have any other questions? Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And And I just want to add, you know, for me, looking at who you, excuse me, who you would want to have on the board, having somebody that is a certified public accountant and has that business experience and familiarity with the industry, to me, one, I'm thankful that he's willing to step up to the plate and do this because he's obviously not doing it for the money. But I think he is going to provide an insight to that board with from his unique perspective. So I think his background really makes him a huge asset to the state board. So that's just my perspective.
Thank you, Senator Gray. Members, are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Mr. Adopted Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Adopted Vice Chair. Adopted Chair. I move that the Senate Education Committee recommend to the full Senate the confirmation of Douglas Ball to the State Board of Private Post-Secondary Education.
Thank you, members. Let's see here. Members, you've heard the question. We'll go ahead and go to the roll call vote.
Senator Barto,
Senator Bartow votes aye on the nomination of Douglas Ball to the State Board of Private Post-Secondary Education.
Representative Bartow votes aye for the nomination of Douglas Ball to the State Board of Private Post-Secondary Education.
Senator Gonzalez,
Mr. Chair, can I
Senator Gonzalez,
explain my vote?
please.
Thank you. I, would agree that, and I hope Mr. Ball doesn't take this personally, but I thank you for wanting to be serve on the State Board for Private and Post-Secondary Education. I think you do have qualifications and be able to really financially help the board out. And so, like I mentioned, I have some questions that just haven't quite been answered, but I thank your response to my question on the ethical part of if there's a conflict that you would not vote for any of your clients while on the board. And I will research some things. And for the meantime, I will vote yes, but I might have objections on the floor for your nomination if I don't get answers to my questions. Thank you.
I vote yes.
Senator Gray,
Senator Gray votes aye on the appointment of Douglas Ball to the State Board for Private Post-Secondary Education.
Senator Gray votes aye on the nomination of Douglas Ball to the State Board for Private Post-Secondary Education.
Senator Mars,
Aye.
Senator Pace,
Aye.
Senator Pace Lakay,
I, Senator Pesh-Lakai, vote aye on the nomination of Mr. Doug Ball to, I vote aye. Thank you.
Senator Pesh-Lakai votes aye to the nomination of Douglas Ball, State Board of Private Post-Secondary Education.
Senator Show,
Aye, and if I may, I think that perhaps staff can help with, I'm sure that commission or that committee has its own bylaws that it operates under. Perhaps it would be appropriate to make sure that Senator Gonzalez has those so that way she can have a better answer to a question. And with that, I vote aye.
Senator Boyer. 7 ayes, 0 nay, and 1 not voting.
Members, by your vote of 7 ayes, 0 nays, 1 not voting, you have returned to the full Senate for consideration nomination of Douglas Ball to the State Board for Private Post-Secondary Education. All right, we'll move on. Let's see here. Members, we will do House Bill 2022. No? That one's last. We're not going to do that bill. How about 2024? Is the price right on that? Okay.
Mr. Chair and members, Mr. Vice Chair and members, House Bill 2024 includes students enrolled in an internship course as part of a CTED program and a CTED student count. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Members have any questions for staff? It appears not. Look and see. Anybody signed in to speak? We have John Kelly. No? Fantastic. All right. Members, are there any questions? I know Representative Udall is currently chairing House Ed, which is where our chairman is at the moment. Members have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Bartow.
I could not hear the Jeffrey Ong at all at the podium. Could he repeat that, what the bill does, please?
Mr. Vice Chair?
Yeah.
Senator Gray.
Thank you. Yeah, I concur. I've actually got my TV on so that when somebody speaks at the podium, I can actually unmute my TV. But I didn't get to it soon enough to actually hear anything he said either.
Can you hear me now? Excuse me. Check, check.
Yeah, we're doing a mic check. How
Mr.
about
Chair, members, can you hear me? Test, test. House Bill 2024. Can you hear me?
It's still very quiet.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry, we're standing by to try and fix this. Check, check. Mr. Chair and members, can you hear me now? Can you hear me on Zoom? Do I need to be closer? Can you hear me now?
You're coming through a lot clearer now. Again, for those of us that are on Zoom, it might help us to just switch over to the TV where we can turn the volume way up because it is a little bit harder to hear.
Okay, I will do my best to project and go through 2024.
Mr. Ong? Yes, Mr. Ong, can you yell the description of the bill, please?
Mr. Vice Chair and members, House Bill 2024 includes students enrolled in any internship course as part of a CTED program and a CTED student count. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Do members have any questions for Jeffrey? Seeing none, we do now have, and maybe this was meant to be, perhaps, we do have John Kelly available now.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I'm working through all the technical difficulties on this side as well. For the record, my name is John Kelly. I'm here on behalf of the Arizona CTED Consortium. Strong support of House Bill 2024. A very simple bill with the potential to really expand the ability of our career and technical education districts to deliver work-based learning opportunities to really make a difference in the lives of our students. As explained by staff, it simply allows CTED student who is enrolled in a CTE facilitated internship to generate ADM funding for the time spent in that course. These internships are a combination of coursework and hands-on experience for which they receive school credit. They're arranged through local partnerships and arrangements in a manner that's responsive to local businesses who are opening up their doors to practical learning opportunities with the assistance and oversight of the CTEDs. House Bill 2024 restores the eligibility for funding for internships. The CTEDs brought this bill forward in response to demand from their local businesses. They want to help develop the smart technical workforce. And because of the successful educational outcomes they've seen from the previous internship opportunities. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Kelly, are these internships paid or unpaid?
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Chair, Senator Gonzalez, it depends on how the arrangements are set up with the CTEDs. I know that I've talked to the folks at the Pima JTED and some of them are paid and some are unpaid, but absolutely they're designed to give them practical experience and get them paid jobs when they're done through their educational program.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kelly, so it all depends on the company, the firm who's taking on these interns in their business. whether they're going to pay them or not? Is that what I understand?
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Gonzalez, my understanding, and we could certainly follow up with you with the Pima JTED folks and the other CTED administrators, that it's all based on a mutual agreement between the Career and Technical Education District and the business, but there are examples of both paid and unpaid.
Right, Mr. Kelly. Now, that was what I was going to follow up on. I believe that obviously they have to be approved for the program already, correct? And there may be some who pay, don't pay, but everything has to go through the program that the CT entity is running.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. The students are interviewed by the CTED program. They're placed. The academic performance and the academic value of the internship is reviewed by the CTED. And so there's this ongoing, continuing academic relationship between the CTED and the business involved in the internship. But it just gives the students a much more practical understanding. And it's not as if they're working hours and hours. This is similar to an academic coursework commitment.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Do members have any more questions for Mr. Kelly? Seeing none, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 2024 with a do pass recommendation.
There are no amendments on the bill. The Secretary call the roll.
Senator Barto,
Senator Bartow votes aye on House Bill 2024.
Senator Bartow votes aye on House Bill 2024.
Senator Gonzalez,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explain my vote.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am very supportive of CTEDs and everything that the CTEDs are doing for our young people, and I'm going to support this bill. Because it's a good bill. I just have a concern that I want Mr. Kelly and those of you that work with the CTECs directly, is that it seems to me that not all of the interns that are then equitable. Either I believe that either they should be all paid or all non-paid. I think what students get out of it from being in these internships are valuable or invaluable and important. But if I were a student, I'd be asking, okay, who are the ones, the internships that are paid? Because that's where I want to go. But anyway, I just want you to know that's where my head is, and I vote yes.
Senator Gray,
Senator Gray votes aye on House Bill 2024.
Senator Gray votes aye on House Bill 2024.
Senator Mars,
Aye.
Senator Pace,
Aye.
Senator Pace Lakay,
I, Senator Peschlakai, vote aye on House Bill 2024.
Senator Peschlakai votes aye on House Bill 2024.
Senator Shaw,
Aye.
Senator Boyer, 7 ayes, 0 nay, and 1 not voting.
Thank you. By your vote of 7 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 not voting, you have given House Bill 2024 a do pass recommendation. All right. House Bill 2124.
Mr. Chair and members, House Bill 2124 allows students in approved career technical education programs to generate an ADM for instruction received during any hour of the day, during any day of the week, and at any time between July 1st and June 30th of each fiscal year. Additionally, the bill allows CTEDs to operate for less than 180 days per year and specifies CTED ADM calculations. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Do members have questions? Just give it a second in case they're on the delay there. Seeing none, we have John Kelly. Did he drop off? Let's see if he just take a quick moment. We should have kept him on. All right, members, are there any questions or comments on House Bill 2124? This is Is this something we've already heard, correct? I think, did I sponsor this? I did, didn't I? Okay. So yes, we've heard this. It has already cleared. Of course, there are a few bills, and I think that we're all experiencing this as we sit in committee that weren't swapped. This was obviously one of them. So if members have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain. Seeing none, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 2124 receive a due pass recommendation.
Thank you. There are no amendments to the bill, and I would ask the secretary to call the roll.
Senator Barto,
Senator Bartow votes aye on House Bill 2124.
Senator Bartow votes aye on House Bill 2124.
Senator Gonzalez,
Aye.
Senator Gray,
Senator Gray, with a little deja vu, votes aye on House Bill 2124.
That's what freaked me out.
Senator Mars,
Aye.
Senator Pace,
Aye.
Senator Peslakay,
I, Senator Peschelkai, vote aye on House Bill 2124.
Senator Peschelkai votes aye on House Bill 2124.
Senator Shaw,
Aye.
Senator Boyer, 7 ayes, 0 nay, and 1 not voting.
Members, by your vote of 7 ayes, 0 nays, 1 not voting, you have given House Bill 2124 a due pass recommendation. We'll go to House Bill 2210.
Mr. Chair and members, House Bill 2210 allows governing boards subject to ADE policies to provide food and beverages at school district events, including school functions and trainings. Mr. Chair, there's an amendment I would be happy to explain.
Please proceed.
The 4-line amendment dated March 8, 2021 at 8:47 a.m. in the chair's name, subject the provision of food and beverages to the Arizona Constitution's gift clause, requires school districts to follow Arizona travel and gift policies, including federal grants and devices. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do members have any questions of staff? Senator Gonzalez, yes, there's an amendment. Can we repeat what the amendment does?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Senator Gonzalez. The 4-line amendment dated March 8, 2021 at 8:47 a.m. in the chair's name subjects the provision of food and beverages to the Arizona Constitution's gift clause, requires school districts to follow Arizona travel and gift policies, including federal grants and devices. With that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And I think that's essentially conforming language to other, to what the law that exists currently, correct?
Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Thank you. Do members have any questions? Senator Gonzalez?
Is this the amendment that I think I overheard that the Auditor General was asking for?
Mr. Chair, Senator Gonzalez, that is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Pace? 2210, yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I move House Bill 2210 receive a due pass recommendation.
And the amendment?
And I move the 4-line amendment dated March 8, 2021 at 8:47 a.m. in Senator Boyer's name be adopted.
Those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed vote nay. Appears the ayes do have it so ordered. Senator Pace?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that House Bill 2210 as amended do pass.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Barto,
Senator Bartow votes aye on House Bill 2210 as amended.
Senator Bartow votes aye on House Bill 2210 as amended.
Senator Gonzalez,
Aye.
Senator Gray,
Senator Gray votes aye on House Bill 2210 as amended.
Senator Gray votes aye on House Bill 2210 as amended.
Senator Mars,
Aye.
Senator Pace,
Aye.
Senator Peslakay,
I, Senator Peschelkai, vote aye on HB 2210.
Thank you. Senator Peschelkai votes aye on HB 2210.
Senator Shaw,
Aye.
Senator Boyer, 7 ayes, 0 nay, and 1 not voting.
Members, by your vote of 7 ayes, 0 nays, 1 not voting, you have passed House Bill 2210 as amended, or given House Bill 2210 as amended with a due pass recommendation. We will go on to the final bill, 2022.
Mr. Chair and members, House Bill 2022 establishes a 5-year resource and service consolidation grant program administered by the Arizona Department of Education. Additionally, the bill deems a county school superintendent eligible to apply for a grant based upon demonstrated need, cost savings, and self-sufficiency. House Bill 2022 requires ADE to award grants by February 1st, 2022, and annually disperse grant monies to recipients for 5 consecutive years or until ADE determines that the proposal is self-sufficient. ADE may develop evaluation criteria and procedures to carry out the program. Lastly, the bill appropriates $10 million from the State General Fund in fiscal year 2022 to ADE to administer the grant program. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Do members have any questions for staff? We have
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair.
Senator Gray.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a huge question about why we need to have $10 million to actually look for ways to consolidate resources and services.
Perhaps Mr. Ahrens, whenever I hand it over to him, will be able to enlighten us. Do members have any other questions for staff before I let them go? Seeing none, Barry Ahrens is on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm still getting used to unmuting. That's been my biggest challenge here in these hearings. For the record, my name is Barry Ahrens. I'm here on behalf of the Arizona Association of County School Superintendents in support of House Bill 2022. I wanted to thank the Chairman Udall in the House for having.
Mr. Ahrens, can we ask you to speak up just a little louder inside the room, believe it or not? Now we're having a little trouble.
I apologize. Let me raise the sound here a little bit. Is that any better?
Slightly.
Is that any better, Mr. Chairman? Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, let me, again, Barry Ahrens on behalf of the Arizona Association of County School Superintendents, here in support of House Bill 2022. I wanted to thank Representative Udall. I know she's not there, but I wanted to thank her for introducing the bill. If I may go directly to Mr. Gray's question that he asked of staff before I came on. There's an old slogan that says sometimes it takes money to save money. And when you're doing the type of programming and you're developing the type of programming that's going to do some consolidation of functions, for example, when you're going to be developing new services for school districts, for charter schools, for counter-fee library districts, you're going to have to expend some money in order to study and find the necessary information that's going to enable you to do that. If you consider that we have 15 county school superintendents right now, and several of them already have very, very fine education service centers. The Yavapai Education Service Center up in Prescott, the Maricopa County Educational Service Center that Superintendent Steve Watson runs. These are all fine organizations. And the $10 million, when you break it down through how many school districts we have, how many county free library districts we have, how many tribal libraries, and so on and so forth, you can see that that isn't a lot of money. I would also add to that the fact that this is going to be done on a grant program. There's nothing that suggests that all the money necessarily will be spent. There are some very, very specific requirements on how the Department of Education is required to disperse the money and what the circumstances are under which the grants can be approved. So we believe that this is going to advance better public school and charter school education by allowing us to consolidate services, to make the most of the types of opportunities that we have, and therefore we would encourage you to support the bill.
Do members have any questions for Mr. Ahrens? Senator Gray, did you want to follow up?
Yeah, I just want to have a better understanding of this. And, you know, one of the challenges I've had is I remember when U of A was asking for $12 million to do research on whether or not to have a veterinarian school. And then Midwest University, which is a private school, they went out and I think they spent about $1,200 or no more than $12,000. It was just, there was an ironic coordination of the 12s there to do their investigation, which meant they went around to Duke and all the other universities had veterinarian colleges. So there's a difference in how we spend money, and if we got money, then we end up spending it. But I don't understand why, if you're working in an environment and you're looking at different things that could actually drive efficiencies for you, where does that money have to be spent that it necessitates a $10 million budget figure?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, Senator Gray, thank you for the question. I would suggest to you that, again, there's a lot of work that goes into making determinations of how to do some consolidation opportunities, that there is a lot of work and time, and time costs money. We have very, very busy county school superintendents to begin with. They might be required to hire professional consulting firms to assist them in it. I appreciate your story on the differentiation between a public university and private college making their determination. I would suggest to you that we're in the best position to determine how to do it. And I would suggest to you that while the $10 million is generous, I suspect that they're not going to spend all that money. And I would suspect that when you utilize, for example, paragraph B on lines 34 to 36 of the bill, where it says that multiple county school superintendents may jointly apply for a single grant, that you'll probably cut down the responsible costs. I do not know why Ms. Udall put in the $10 million figure. We did not bring this bill to her with that money amount, but we support it. We think it's a good idea to give ourselves the opportunity to have some resources necessary to enhance our educational service centers.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? Members, I just got done testifying in House Education. They are on their last bill. They're wrapping up right now. And so I don't know, I missed all the discussion, but if we feel compelled to hear from the bill sponsor, I mean, I'm sure she could get over here very quickly. Mr. Vice Chair, do we have anybody else who's signed in to speak?
Mr. Chairman, we had only Barry Aarons.
Senator Gonzalez.
I'm wondering if Mr. Aarons has an example of maybe a collaboration or a consolidation that could happen. Just
Mr. Aarons.
Chairman, Senator Gonzalez, I would suggest to you that the current successes of the Maricopa County Educational Service Agency, the Yavapai County Educational Service Agency, point to the fact that where we have been able to do this in the past, that they have provided better educational opportunities, consolidation, and maybe more importantly, cooperations among varying organizations that provide educational services to make sure that those educational services are being provided at the most efficient manner possible.
And it looks like the sponsor's here. So Representative Udall, we are on your consolidation bill.
I yield.
Thank you. Smart man.
Thank you. I'm Representative Udall, LD 25. This bill came about because of a stakeholder process. We were talking about consolidation. And instead of talking so much about consolidating districts, which we all know has been kind of a nightmare any time it's been attempted, we talked about some of the reasons that people wanted to consolidate districts. And the biggest one was because we wanted to consolidate resources. We wanted to be able to use the same systems among districts. And so this is kind of a compromise between the two in that it allows the county superintendents to provide some of those resources, whether it's substitute teaching services, whether it's central transportation, whether it's special needs, whether it's nurses, whatever it is that is needed within their county. Those can be provided at the county level and then used on a fee-for-service basis by a variety of districts. That way you get the economy of scales that you get with a large district without having to go through all the headaches of actually consolidating the districts. And so that's the point of this bill. The problem is that in order to start up a program like that takes some seed money. And so Yavapai has been able to do this. Their Board of Supervisors has given some money for them to do some of these programs, and so they have started several of these. It's been incredibly successful. The districts love it. They have substitute services through this. They have, I don't know what all their list is. I don't know if Tim Carter is on here today. He's kind of been the architect of that in Yavapai County, and it has been, the districts have loved it. And so these services could be made available to districts and charters, and it would be based on what the needs of the districts and charters in each county are. And so that's what you have before you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions for the sponsor? Senator Gonzalez.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh.
I have one more question.
Senator Gray, I'm going to go to Senator Gonzalez, and then you're on deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Udall. So one of the questions, so I have a better understanding now that you came, but I have, so are there any other examples in the metro area where they've been successful in this? Because I can see that rural districts would be more inclined to do some of these consolidated services.
Thank you for that question, Chairman Boyer and Representative Gonzalez. I think it's more targeted towards the smaller outlying areas. Cochise is very interested in doing this. Superintendent Jackie Clay there in Cochise would like to do something like this, but doesn't have the startup funds. But we do have some small districts and small schools within Maricopa as well that would be interested. My guess is that most of it will be more rural areas because that's where there's the greater need for those consolidated services. They have so many small districts, but we have small districts in Maricopa that could benefit from these kind of resources as well.
Thank you. Senator Gray.
Thank you. And Senator Representative Udall, I appreciate your explanation. How did you come up with the $10 million? And then I can kind of see what you're talking about with personnel. Is it anything outside of personnel, or what kind of resources and services would they be coordinating?
Thank you, Chairman Boyer, Senator Gray. I didn't limit it to any specific thing. I think most of them will be personnel, shared personnel. But some of them may have a facility that they would share and share operating costs on. I didn't want to leave that out of the possibility, but I think of all this, I can't think of any systems that they have currently in Yavapai that aren't personnel related, but I didn't want to limit it to that. Oh, and where the 10 million came from.
Senator Gray.
What's that?
Senator Gray, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll also answer where the 10 million came from. We worked with that stakeholder group, and that's the number we settled on. It doesn't have to be that number. We can negotiate that number. Depending on how much we put in there, that's how many programs they can start. These programs are required to be self-sufficient on the fee-for-service within 5 years anyway. So it's really just the seed money to get those kind of programs started. And depending on the size of the program, some of them cost more or less. So as much as we put in there, that's how much we will get out of it, pretty much.
Senator Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think she answered my question. I'm still not sure about the amount that we're putting toward that, but I like the idea, and I think consolidation, being able to work together to reduce costs for our schools. I'm a lover of efficiency, so I do like that aspect of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions for the sponsor? Senator Bartow.
I have a question. Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and Representative Udall. I like the idea too. I'm wondering, is there any oversight or reporting as a result of this program? How is Yavapai doing it? And, is there something we can look at to kind of see how beneficial it is in different ways?
Sure, Chairman Boyer and Senator Bartow. So we did add an amendment in the House that allows them to keep reevaluating that during that first 5 years to see whether or not it's likely to achieve that self-sufficiency. That's really the goal, is if it meets self-sufficiency, if they're able to charge a lower amount than the school district was spending, and also it be self-sufficient, then I think we've met our target. And that's really what we're aiming at. And that's, I mean, when they create their business plan to apply for the grant, that's where we kind of flesh out whether or not it's going to be worthwhile. And then we do have them, I'm trying to remember what reporting we did put into it. Yavapai doesn't report to us on it because they've just done it within their own county. And so I assume they report to their board of supervisors on it as part of the county. But we did not add extra reporting requirements after that. After they become self-sufficient, we're not giving them more money after that, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, would the sponsor, would you like any closing comments before we move the bill?
I don't think so. That's good.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I move House Bill 2022 with a due pass recommendation.
There are no amendments. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the Secretary please call the roll?
Senator Barto,
Senator Bartow votes aye on House Bill 2022.
Senator Bartow votes aye on House Bill 2022.
Senator Gonzalez, Senator Gray,
Mr. Chairman, may I explain my vote?
Please proceed.
I still have some concerns about this, but I am going to support it through committee and then look at it a little bit deeper. But as for now, Senator Gray votes aye on House Bill 2022.
Senator Gray votes aye on House Bill 2022.
Senator Mars,
Aye.
Senator Pace,
Aye.
Senator Pesh-Lakay,
I, Senator Pesh-Lakay, vote aye on House Bill 2022.
Senator Pesh-Lakay votes aye on House Bill 2022.
Senator Shaw,
Mr. Chairman, may I explain my vote?
Please proceed.
Thank you. I just want to thank Representative Udall for bringing this forward. I think that she and I have had numerous discussions in the past about different forms and different ways to consolidate resources and/or even further along consolidate entire districts. As I think some of you know, when I was a board member in Coolidge, we actually did work out an arrangement with Florence Unified School District, and they took over land that was previously Coolidge Unified in a very cumbersome process that involved 3 separate elections taking place in order to do so. I strongly believe that that both entities were winners in the end, and if this is something that can go ahead, this bill here can go ahead and allow different school districts to go ahead and combine resources, et cetera, in a way that isn't as cumbersome in lieu of actually changing that law, then by all means, I think we ought to be encouraging it as much as possible. And with that, I vote aye.
Senator Boyer,
This is a voluntary setup, and I think it's a great idea. I vote aye.
8 ayes, 0 nay, and 0 not voting.
Members, by your vote of 8 aye, 0 nay, 0 not voting, you have given House Bill 2022 a due pass recommendation.
Thank you.
If the public would like to testify next week, know that you need to email senateed@azledge.gov no later than 9 p.m. on Monday, March 15th, 2021. Having no further business before the body, the Senate Education Committee is adjourned. Thank you.